What happens when you blend futurist intellect, maternal intuition, and a fierce passion for literacy? You get Debbie Yetta Kahn Cunningham, the one and only virtual Jewish mother for rent. In today's episode, Debbie brings her signature mix of candor, compassion, and tech-savvy insight as we explore the state of education in a digitally overstimulated world. We'll talk about AI in the classroom, why reading is still the most essential skill, and how tools like WordWeaver are sparking imagination in kids who hate books. We'll also unpack family trends, school funding, and why college might not be the answer for everyone. If you ever wanted straight talk from someone who gets it, this is your episode. Let's dive in. Well, hello, Debbie. How are you today?
I'm good. It is really nice to be here with you, Andy.
You bet. I've been looking forward to this for a long time. I got a question for you before we dive in here. You and I are into technology. It was actually interesting before we started. You said you're actually not as technology savvy as one might think reading your bio here. But my question for you is this: how do you think technology is changing education starting now and then moving into the future? What are your thoughts on that?
Okay, I'm not going to start now.
You're
Let's
not
go
going to.
back.
Okay.
No, let's go back even 20, 30 years. I
Okay.
want you to
Gotcha.
think about this.
Okay.
It's more so now when you can put a tablet in the hands of a 2-year-old.
Right.
But even before that, even when it was one way, I mean, what's one of the nicknames for a television? The Great Babysitter, right? So double that with the advent around the year 2000 of the internet starting to be everywhere, everything getting interactive. I want you to think for a minute about taking your 5-year-old and putting them in a kindergarten classroom. You're putting them in a sensory deprivation tank.
Interesting. Okay.
I mean, you're taking some kid who, based on the media they consume, the food they eat, how early and how much they might have been vaccinated or over vaccinated, how much attention they get from the adults in their lives.
Right.
To digress for a moment, one of the saddest, most terrifying moments, not terrifying, but just, yeah, sad moment. I'm on a New
Mm.
York City subway. It's got to be close to 15 years ago now.
Okay.
And there's a public service ad campaign.
Mm.
Look at your baby.
Okay.
Okay? Because people by then are on their phones so much. I mean, how do children
Wow.
develop empathy? How do they start to
Wow.
develop emotional maturity? They do it because you look them in the face. What was one of the big
Interesting.
things with COVID? Those
Yeah.
masks.
Yeah.
Looking at people in masks,
Hmm.
stop to learn how to interpret human expression.
Yep. Yep.
So,
Absolutely.
15 years ago, look at
Mm.
your baby. I was like,
Interesting. I
I've
thought you were
never
going a
forgotten.
completely different direction when you said look at your baby. But it was literally like stop what you're doing right now and actually
And
connect with your
yeah,
child.
eye
Wow.
contact, eye
How sad is
contact.
that we have to be reminded?
And in a funny way, it's the what is a ubiquitous image in small babies, larger babies, not
Mhm.
infants, and young children in America. It's strollers,
Okay.
right? But
Hmm.
okay, I want you to think about this. You're a little kid. You're a baby. You're
Hmm.
in a stroller. Mom is a disembodied voice somewhere above and behind you, and
Okay.
you are endlessly being pushed into a sea of giants at knee level.
Right.
Now, how do you learn in the world? You have a tablet.
Mm-hmm.
You're 2 years old, and you can say, Alexa, put Barney on the TV. I mean,
Right.
and now you walk into a normal classroom. I don't know about you, but I think that probably is not a bad analogy.
Yeah.
Sensory deprivation tank.
Yeah.
Oh, and
Yeah.
by the way, you probably don't have great interpersonal skills
Mm.
because you're an only child.
Yeah.
You're one of two kids versus a time in history. Let's go roughly 1900, okay?
Hmm.
You know what the average size of a family was?
I'm gonna guess five or more.
8.
Eight. Wow.
That's the average, okay? By the year 2000, the average size of a family is 2. in
Oh
major
my
urban.
goodness.
Well,
Wow.
let me reframe this. I did a report with my daughter.
Okay.
We lived in Chappaqua, 1 hour north of New York City, and we did a report on Chappaqua in 1790, 1890, and 1990.
Okay.
1790, average size of a family, 8. 1890. Oh yeah, I'm sorry, it was Chappaqua and New York City. We were looking at
Okay.
both. But average size of a family in 1890, 8. Average size of a family in 1990,
Hmm.
2.
My goodness.
And that includes parents and kids. So you're
Yeah.
talking single parent, one child,
Right.
couples with no kids.
Hmm.
I mean, the that change
Hmm.
is mind-boggling.
It is. It is. It's actually so ironic, the timing of this. I actually moderated a panel. I think it was on Monday. That's dropping also today. Little shameless plug right there. Talking about declining enrollment and how the birth rate is lower, migration is lower. We're not keeping up. So on top of education not being funded the way it needs to be, which I sounds like we could get way off track of this, but just the thought I
Yeah,
would
yeah,
mention it
yeah,
right now is just with smaller families, their schools have less operating funds to do that as well. So wow, eight
yeah,
to two. That's crazy. I never would have guessed that.
yeah, yeah.
That's
So,
crazy.
I mean, from my position as the daughter of Herman Kahn, Kahn, in case anybody wants to check him out on
Hmm.
Wikipedia, where there is an adequate article. I won't say wonderful, but it's a way to look at him.
Yep.
Um, I grew up being intensely aware of things
Mm.
that I don't think even most people on a sort of, PhD level, policy generating level were. And there's a couple of things. So, number one, I was born in 1954. As of 1970, we were diving into what my father described as the Great Transition,
Okay.
which is the fastest period of change in human history.
Mm.
Okay? Um, how do you measure human history? He used to say, depending on whether you're religious or not, there are only two great events, three if you're religious.
Mm.
First event, agricultural revolution,
Okay.
give or take 10,000 years ago. We go from hunter-gatherers to agriculture. Agriculture gives us the chance to become civilized and build cities and trading networks and, the basics of modern society. You have to wait almost 10,000 years to
Mm.
200, well, now probably 250 years ago with the Industrial Revolution,
Right.
around 1800, give or take. And that transition takes almost 200 years. And then you get the information revolution
Right.
with modern technology. And during the period of when my dad was doing this stuff, the Club of Rome dominated with the population is going to explode and then we're going to collapse into disaster. We're going to overrun the earth. We're going to destroy everything. Imminent ecological doom. Have you noticed we're 50 years later and we're
Hmm.
still plugging along, kids?
Yep. Yep.
Um, all of this stuff. And my father was going, I think you need to look at the data differently.
Right.
We want to look at the fact that number one, technology in a world where everybody's envisioning things as shrinking pies,
Mm-hmm.
technology creates growing pies.
Interesting. Okay.
However, we're human. We don't change that fast. So I knew that we were heading into the fastest change in human history. I knew that we were more in danger from population rates dropping than we were because that, go up and then everything was going to collapse. No, it was a pivot point. It's an S curve.
Yeah. Right.
And we're going into that S curve utterly smoothly.
Mm-hmm.
And it ends up, even based on modern technology, I think the planet can probably support about 10 billion people or something.
Yeah.
By the way, life gets a little restricted when you're that crowded,
True.
but
Very true.
everybody's alive, everybody's
Yeah.
functioning. It's
Right.
not, we're collapsing into
Right.
the Stone Age imminently.
Interesting.
On the
Yeah.
other hand, all of the people who are out there screaming for population control, might just drive us into the scenario we have so far managed to avoid.
Yeah, interesting.
And
And
then, go ahead.
yeah, I was gonna say, and yeah, I mean, it seems like it's the opposite direction at this point, right? It's not that we are growing. I saw something the other day that Japanese birth rate to death rate is substantial. Like they're to the point where they're afraid they're gonna like lose a generation. We mentioned before just the just in school age kids, the decline here. I think it's a worldwide issue. It's actually quite the opposite of what people were fearing, a
And
while
it
ago.
is the worst in the most affluent countries
Yeah, right.
and China.
Interesting. Do you,
So,
and again, we've got so much to cover here, but I would love to get your take on this because again, back to that panel that I was hosting, um, lots of different factors, as you can imagine. I think the cost of living has to be factored into that. I mean, how expensive would it be to have 8 kids right now? Like, I'm just thinking, like, as a young family, like,
okay,
I could maybe do two, maybe
yeah.
three. There's no way I could afford 8 kids.
Okay, so there's some argument about this, but
Okay.
there's a lot of people who think, and my father was one of them. What do you think the world's best contraceptive is?
I don't know. I can't wait to hear the answer to this.
Wealth,
Wealth. Interesting. Okay.
okay?
All right.
Every country that gets wealthy, and this is not, there's all kinds of stuff about there are very rich families that are much larger than average because they can afford that many kids, but on average, there is an incredibly consistent correlation. A country goes from third world to second world to third world. And as you go through that transition, when you go third world to second world, because your kids don't die anymore from
Hmm.
side effects of poverty, the
Right.
birth rate shoots through the roof. And
Hmm.
then all of a sudden, it just collapses somewhere around two or less. I
Interesting.
had a Brazilian boyfriend,
Okay.
um, and his ex-wife was one of seven.
Okay.
He was one of seven. Of all of those siblings, between the two of them, none
Hmm.
of them had more than two children.
Really?
It
Huh.
was very funny. There was a campaign, and I think it was Thailand, where they started distributing condoms.
Hmm.
And as my father said, if you looked, it was the most efficient birth control, government generated program in history.
Hmm. Hmm.
But if you also looked at it in terms of the GNP,
Hmm.
it was also a perfect correlation.
Interesting. Very cool.
So, and he used to say, in 1790,
Hmm.
Benjamin Franklin said, if you want to get rich, marry a woman with 8 children. Sorry, a widow with 8 children.
Okay.
You're marrying a labor force. It's an
Hmm.
agricultural society mostly.
Right. Right.
Said now what you
Hmm.
said I want you to imagine taking all 8 of them to Disney World.
Right.
He
I
said
took it.
that's before we talk about sending them to college.
Yep. I'm right there. I got 2 high school boys, and it is just frightening to
For
think how much that would be.
years,
Hmm.
what country had the lowest birth rate in Europe? Italy.
Italy. Okay.
The land of the Roman Catholic Church, and you're not
Hmm.
allowed to use birth control.
Right. Right.
But they got wealthy.
Interesting.
You stop having kids.
Hmm.
And then you have all of the problems. They're not, schools that are paid but per head.
Hmm.
Their funding dries up.
Yeah.
Social Security, we've all heard that's going to be, horrific.
Right.
Um, maybe you get rid of some of the abuses with what Doja's doing right now, and it
Hmm.
lasts, another 5 or 6 years.
Right. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
still an insupportable model,
Hmm.
and an insupportable burden for your high school kids,
Yeah. Right. Exactly
you
right.
know. And
Exactly
we're
right.
all living longer to make it even worse.
Hmm. Very true. Very
There's
true.
just a huge amount of change. So going
Hmm.
back to within this entire, picture and framework,
Hmm.
let's pretend your kids are a little older or you're a little younger and it's your 5-year-old and they're heading off to school.
Okay.
It's a sensory deprivation tank.
Right. Right.
They're used to constant,
Hmm.
media
Right.
input. And now they're supposed to go and sit still.
Right. Yeah. It's
It's,
not conducive. It's not conducive,
yeah.
and I would say it's not age appropriate. That's another one that just as an educator
Oh,
just
yeah.
drove me nuts. Like At what point did it make sense that we're having these little 4 or 5 year olds step in and we're teaching them how to, sounds of letters and different things like that? You look at other countries that have far better education systems. What do those first 2 or 3 years? They teach manners. They teach how to, be a good person. And that they're crushing us
The
in
Waldorf schools,
yes, exactly right.
where they
Exactly right.
really don't care much about, for anybody who doesn't know, the Waldorf is, I believe, the largest independent private school
Mhm.
model system, whatever you want to call, internationally.
Right.
And they start worrying about kids who aren't reading around the age of 9.
Yeah. Yeah. Not
But
5.
before that, they don't worry about it.
Exactly right.
And it's an incredibly effective
Right.
education system.
Right. So Debbie, let's actually shift into education because we've already been on quite the ride, which I love. It's super fun. I mentioned to you before that one of the little clips that you had mentioned before we started recording, I'm going to have to figure out how to splice that in because it was super fun. I knew that we were going to have just lots of different ways that we could kind of take this conversation. So let's backtrack just a little bit. I love your moniker is you are the virtual Jewish mother for rent. I have to know where did that come from? Is that something that was just kind of a catchy thing that people you thought people would like? Do you find people need a Jewish mother? Like where did that come from?
Well, first of all, everybody needs a Jewish mother, Andy.
I didn't know this. I've got a great mom. She's not Jewish, but tell me why I need a
Well,
virtual Jewish
well,
mother.
so here's the deal. You've got a great mom, but how many people don't?
That's so
Either
true.
mom's
Absolutely.
not there, or mom wasn't a great mom, or mom is mom, so there's things you'd like to share with her, but she's your mom, and maybe you don't want to talk about that stuff with her. Um, really, I'm Jewish, so virtual Jewish mother for when was easy. I feel so. I've been a coach for 10 years. I've been working most of my life as a freelancer, and I've always run into people who talk about personal branding.
Hmm.
And I'll just sort of describe it as God gifted me sometime last year.
Okay.
After decades of trying on one personal brand concept
Okay.
after another,
Hmm.
I woke up one morning and thought, virtual Jewish mother for rent. And I tried it out. And what do you want in a great brand? You want it to be hooky.
Hmm.
You want
Yep.
people to remember it. And
Yep.
in my case, I want people to laugh and go,
Hmm.
and what do you do?
Hmm.
And that
Right.
is what I get about
I
90% of
love
the
it.
time. And
Yeah.
you know something? I'm short. I've been, we'll just say, had generous curves all of my life.
Okay.
Um, I don't look good in a tailored suit. I've spent
Okay.
years in and out of corporate environments.
Right.
And in a weird back to education, I spent years working with at-risk kids and immigrant families in the South Bronx because I had relatives there,
Mm-hmm.
and I got involved with the schools. And none of my positions were very formal. And I used to walk into these South Bronx schools, and they'd go, "Oh, you work for the Board of Ed, huh?" And then I go, "Mm-hmm," and I just get shown into the school. It was like it was, short, chubby, brunette Jewish woman in a mostly minority school. Obviously, she works for the Board of Ed.
Right.
I cannot tell you how many places I got into I should not have been.
Right. That's so funny. That's so
And
funny.
so, the evolution of that is I wake up one morning and go, virtual Jewish mother for rent. I kind of like that. Let me try
Hmm.
it out. And
Hmm.
it's beautiful.
I love it. I
And
love it.
you're supposed to niche down. Am I an
That's
education
what you hear.
expert? Am
Right.
I working with AI?
Right. Right.
Am I doing, alternative medicine consulting? Am I helping people become homeschoolers or wrestle with, and I've got an umbrella under which it
Hmm.
all sits.
Right. Right.
I
I
have
love it.
practical solutions for your
Hmm.
unique problems.
There you go. That sounds great. Another phrase that you used in your bio, which I thought was very cool. I don't know very many people that would lean into this, but you were like first line certified life coach, the wise crone phase of your life. Tell me more about why that was that. We heard about the virtual Jewish mother, but why are you taking on the moniker of a wise crone?
Because I don't have to tell you exactly how old. So, how do I tell you I have learned an incredible amount in my life and gathered up a lot of experience and might
Hmm.
be a very useful resource without telling you that?
Hmm.
I'm in the wise crone stage of my
There you
life.
go. There you go. I love it.
And I
That's
don't have to dye my hair anymore.
There you go. It's not worth it anymore at this point, right?
I
Just
don't need,
accept it.
other than personal health reasons, so I'm short
Hmm.
and dumpy looking. It doesn't matter. It matches my brand. I'm
Oh, I
so
love it.
excited.
Oh, I love it. So you mentioned a little bit of the different aspects that you have been as in education and coaching and this kind of stuff. You mentioned working in the Bronx there. Um, I didn't mention this before, but you said something about Excel, that you are kind of like a very, very accomplished Microsoft Excel trainer, and it seems like that has kind of opened doors into lots of different things. Tell me a little bit about your time in corporate America, kind of being a Microsoft not sales trainer.
So I married a man who was a uh, video lighting designer, and all of our tech friends were getting into the new personal computers.
Okay.
And I started by learning WordStar. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm just wondering how many people in your audience are going, I'm that old. I remember WordStar. And then I got into word processors
Hmm.
and I started temping because
Okay.
I was his rep and he was a lighting designer and having an extra income really helped.
Mm-hmm.
And as I started temping, I was an expert. I was talking to
Mm-hmm.
somebody about this morning. Why? Because I was at most two steps ahead of everybody around me.
There you go. There you go.
And it was
Yep.
the very beginning of personal computers.
I love it. That's
And
pretty cool.
eventually, I became certified in Microsoft Office. The
Mm-hmm.
most requested and desired skill in corporate America for that is probably Excel.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I also taught a lot of business soft skills classes,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
PowerPoint and how to do good presentations,
Sure.
Word, um, a little bit of Access. Again,
Mm-hmm.
not highly technical, very, very focused on how do you use these things
Mm-hmm.
in real life in a
Right.
practical way? What are the best shortcuts to make you efficient? And over almost 40 years of doing that, I started to count one day, and quantitative is good on your resume. And I can honestly say I have probably trained over 10,000 mostly adult
Wow.
corporate professional students. Now, and here's the other thing. I I have real issues not just with those kindergartners in a uh, sensory deprivation tank,
Uh-huh.
but the whole model of higher education.
Yeah.
Because I teach in between 1 and 3 days
Mm-hmm.
what you pay an obscene amount for your
Mm.
kids
Yep.
to do over the course of an entire semester because they have to take an intro to computing class.
Yep. Reach. It's so true. It's so
You
true.
know, the
Yep.
difference between study with me,
Mm-hmm.
improve your vocabulary, Google it, and then come back
Mm-hmm.
and study with me,
Mm-hmm.
6 months or a year later for one or
Right.
2 days and pay thousands of dollars at a not quite Ivy League school
Mm-hmm.
to get not as good training because it's theoretical and it's not,
Right.
you know, life skills applied approach.
Sure.
And I'm sorry, everything
Yeah.
is out there. The
Yeah.
great courses, are you familiar with the great courses?
I don't know if I've heard of that one. There's
Check
lots
them
of them
out.
out there. Yeah. Okay. Well.
Check out
Yeah. Okay.
thegreatcourses.com. I think they're still out there. I don't think they've been bought. They might have been. But 25 years ago, they came up with this concept.
Mm-hmm.
We'll poll people and then we'll go around the country and we'll record classes from the best, most credentialed, most loved professor on any topic.
Okay.
And those are now available to me for, at their top price, a few $100s. I can get a lecture series by Atul Gawande
Mm-hmm.
on, the man who wrote the Checklist Manifesto and Being Mortal
Mm-hmm.
without ever having to get anywhere near Harvard.
Yeah. Right.
I
Yeah.
can tap into what is his first name? Salman Khan,
Salman
Khan
Khan. Yep.
Academy.
Yep. Yep.
I can get my kids their basic education just using him.
Yep.
And then if they're smart and starting at a high school level, I can tap into something like the great courses. And my kids, for a few hundreds or thousands of dollars, can get a better education than 30 years ago I could have bought for 60 to $100,000.
So true. So true. Along the same lines, master classes, and I'm sure that's more than what great courses are, but that's a great one. University.com is kind of a similar thing. A buddy of mine turned me onto that one, and it's the idea. I think their their baseline is that if you have not made $1 million doing what it is that you're training people on, you're not going to be one of our professors. So you have to be like wickedly successful in what it is that you're doing, trading,
Mm-hmm.
marketing, whatever that is, and then you can be a professor. And again, it's like a monthly thing, not like this ridiculous, hundreds of thousands of dollars per year. So I love it.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
It's
And then
crazy
there's,
the resources that are out there.
while we're talking resources, drifting far away from those poor, trapped in their sensory deprivation tank kindergartners,
Hmm.
um, you want to send your kid to college. The money's insane.
It's ridiculous.
Well, there's a whole bunch of ways to help them skip at the very least the first 2 years of college. There's a
Okay.
now very dated, but I think still existing website called BA in 4 weeks. Literally, BAIN, the number 4 weeks. And it's basically how to test out of a bachelor's degree, which you can do for probably under $2,000 and maybe under $1,000
Huh.
based on CLEPs
Hmm.
and other exams.
Interesting.
If
B8
you
and 4
have
weeks.
the knowledge,
Yeah.
all you have to do is prove it.
Hmm.
And then is it Empire State University? There's like four virtual universities that
Hmm.
will help you go through this process.
Okay. Kind of thing. Yeah.
Um, but it is really hard to get into college as a freshman,
Yeah.
to a good school.
Sure.
So if you decide to go in as transfer student, you can do that from something like a less expensive community college,
Right.
or you can do that by walking in and saying, I have X number of credits.
Hmm.
I'm applying for school as a sophomore or a junior.
Right. Right. No, makes perfect sense. Makes
And then
perfect
you
sense.
can get those benefits of the connections you make and stuff. So,
Right. Right.
because I know we're going to run out of time, where is
Right.
education going with technology? First of all, on top of all of the arguments about a 19th century model of education based on, summer breaks because of agriculture and farming
Mhm.
and trying to take masses of immigrants and make them suitable to work in factories and, become Americanized, all of that. So the model itself with the physical classrooms, I have a thing that says um, education is learning is something along the lines of it. Education is required, learning is optional.
Mhm.
Learning is necessary, schools are optional.
Okay.
Something
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. I like
Because
that.
just the technology, forget VR, forget
Hmm.
all of that. The technology, just the list you put up there before, the resources have
Hmm.
changed everything.
Right.
And you've also got is it Coursera, and you've got
Hmm.
the ability to audit classes around the country and very
Right.
advanced. Uh, ju- Access to information is such a non-problem that the
Hmm.
idea of channeling it through schools the way we do is
Right.
insanity.
Yeah, I
And
I
I would
totally agree.
love to come back and give you my concept for the big ed reform picture for
I
how to
I love it.
implement this stuff.
Exactly. We even talked about that before. We knew that there was no way we were going to get through all of this great content.
Yeah,
We didn't even get to mention Dreamweaver, which I'm super sad. We'll have to save that one for next time as well. But between Dreamweaver, which is
WordWeaver,
I'm sorry, WordWeaver. I
WordWeaver, but
apologize.
that's okay.
WordWeaver, which is an AI. Just give a little taste of that one, and then we'll leave it and go on to the
WordWeaver
next.
is an AI tool that creates custom, personalized stories and poems. It was originally designed for resistant, struggling, and beginning readers.
Hmm.
So, 12-year-old kid I know hates reading.
Hmm.
Some very mild learning disabilities, but really it's an attitude mindset thing.
Sure.
He just
Yep.
isn't interested.
Hmm.
So I said, "What do you want to do?" He said, he has one passion in life, fishing. Wants to
Okay.
catch a bluefin tuna.
Okay.
So I wrote a story. He was the
Hmm.
hero. He goes out to the dock. There's a bunch of old guys doing tall fishtails, and an
Mm-hmm.
older wise man comes over and talks to him about what are you really going to need to catch that
Mm-hmm.
bluefin tuna. He devoured it and then reread it 3 times
Wow.
and said, if you want to make a book of stories like that for me, I would like that.
Mm-hmm.
Or rewarding a virtual or sort of fan fiction for the reader who loves reading at a young age. The girl that I did a story for, who's a Narnia fan, she now owns a Lost Narnia chapter that she's in.
I love
And
that.
when I
That's so
gave it to
cool.
her, it looked like somebody flipped a light switch inside.
Yeah. Oh my
You
gosh.
got a
That's so cool.
dyslexic kid, you can do this stuff and you can create a story that has literally a font that makes it easier for dyslexics to read and appropriate bolding in
Wow.
a
Okay.
PDF.
Yeah. Crazy.
So, yeah, there's that.
Yeah.
Um, but what's the biggest thing in education that's going to change everything? I think VR.
Okay.
Why should you be bored by history when you can go back and explore the Egyptian pyramids
Right.
in ancient Egypt?
Yeah. I completely agree.
On the flip side of all of that, though, and this is why WordWeaver exists, we live in a post-textual world.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? um, but I am an absolute passionate believer that reading is still the most critical skill.
I concur. Yep.
I do not think that things have changed since, um, oh, I'm blanking. Shoot. Name me 2 or 3 great Civil War era black uh, intellectuals, figureheads.
Douglas.
Yes,
Okay. You're stretching me. I was hoping that would work.
yes. Frederick Douglass. Thank
Frederick
you.
Douglass. There we go. Yes.
Since Frederick Douglass said that reading is basically he said reading is the path to freedom,
Mm.
and being able to read makes a man unfit for slavery.
Wow. Okay. That's incredible. That's
And then
incredible.
there's everybody else who
Right.
believes in reading.
Right.
I think it is still the most critical skill.
Mm-hmm.
That one of my frustrations with modern schools is if you had to absolutely cut it down, you can only teach one thing. There is only one skill that's required, and that's reading. And these days, it is a secondary topic in most elementary schools, and that is a form of cultural and educational child abuse because nothing else is as important.
Right. Right. Well, let's end on that note because again, we could go far into this. I have some other questions that I want to ask, but again, we need to dive into more about WordWeaver and the power of that. Would love to hear your thoughts on education reform, but for right now, let's go ahead and leave them wanting more. Debbie, thank you so much for your time. This has been an absolute joy. It's been so much fun hearing your stories and hearing all of the wonderful life experiences and this kind of stuff. So until next time, thank you so much. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Take care.
It was a pleasure, Andy.
Debbie reminded us today that in a world full of machines and metrics, it's our stories and our ability to read and write them that keeps us truly free. Whether she's coaching you through a life pivot or helping your child fall in love with reading, Debbie brings wisdom and warmth in equal measure. If you loved this episode, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who's passionate about education, literacy, or just wants a really smart virtual mom in their corner. Until next time, keep learning, keep leading, and never stop questioning what's possible.